Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. This is Dr. Mohammad Nasir Hassan from the Department of English and Foreign Language, Madanapur Institute of Technology and Science, MITS, DMTV University. The title of my paper is Patriarchy, Ecological Crisis and Female Resilience in India, an eco-feminist reading of Tissanidos's poetry. Now let's move to the first slide. The rationale of this paper is means the central concern is this paper show how patriarchal power silence women and links to environmental degradation. And from the Indian context, basically what we can see like it's patriarchy intersect with class, caste, religion and region to intensify control over bodies and ecology. And from the literary focus, this paper especially used Dosis poem to trace resilience, resistance, and ecological memory. Now coming to the next slides, the main core argument of this paper is this paper through this Dosis poetry reveals parallel domination of women and nature, subverts nature culture dualism and imagined resistance via bodily autonomy and ecological memory and collective defense. Now coming to the methodology of this paper. This paper used interdisciplinary kind of approach and basically focus on like close reading of imagery and symbolism. Secondly, comparative reading including Sangam and Bhakti poetry, and then I also use historical and cultural contextualization including Chipko movement and NBA movement and Volgas tragedy. Then which all these are used contextually. And another element that I use here, as I already pointed out, interdisciplinary integration including feminist, environmental and post-colonialism. So for this paper especially I use ecofeminism, and there are three theorists that I have majorly focused, including Fil-Am, secondly Ariel Saleh, and third one is Spivak subaltern perspective, which basically talk about from Indian feminist and definitely for this ecological perspective. Now for this paper I have selected six major poems written by Tisani from northeast of India. So in her poem one thing is very much prominent, that is ecological elements and how this ecology is being distracted by this patriarchal society and how it is interconnected. So basically the first poem is Summer in Madras. So here in this poem what I just try to show like family as a function as a microcosm, and another element is like environmental decay and mirror that domestic disintegration. And another important element that I found, that is modern alienation and performative patriarchal gesture. So like there is some quote everyone in the house is trying unquote, and secondly river break their dams against her nerves, so which represent the suppression of female power. Secondly, the poem what the sea brought in this poem what I found, like the sea is using as a dumping ground, and another thing is like it also includes like pollution, commodification of women, culture loss and glimmers of grassroots renewal. So that I found like quote rubber leather exin fell. So this poem also exposed that commodification of women's physical bodies, particularly in the statement like quote virginity written in a chastity box unquote, which reflects the social perception of women's purity and subordination. And another statement or line that is very important for this like from gravestone of breakers unquote, which symbolize the resilience and regeneration of love and life. Now coming back to the third poem, the woman of the sin dark room, sin Yan Parksona. So in this poem, body is used as a site of autonomy, trauma, and sauna is also a function as a counter hegemony and counter hegemonic space of solidarity and embodied resistance. Like there is a statement, can say line called quote, "Hello, I'm naked." This challenged the societal norm of the patriarchal societies. Now moving to the fourth poem, monsoon poem. So this poem actually basically subverts the romantic monsoon imagery to reveal labor, decay, and unspoken burden carried by women. So quote, like mosquito, blood and daffodil, and fight against the wires of a backjacking paddle, which unveil the violence hidden behind the romantic idealization of man. Now next poem is that girls are coming out of the woods. So in this poem, Basically, forest as function as borderland and victims become collective registers, including memory, ecological haunting, and organized defense, which are found in the poem line like panties tied around their lips, unquote, which represent the repression of women along with the destruction of nature due to deforestation. Even the girl's coffin decorated with briar. Now the next poem, your body language is not Indian. So through this poem basically Tisani Doshi deconstruct like the nationalist, caste and gender norms, and assert also hybrid bodily identities and refusal of essentialism, which we can see like quote, your body language is not Indian, which identifies that nationalist kind of sentimentality and how these women bodies are function, or you can say work as an you can say the space of like commodification, or you can say the repression or dominance. Now next move to these are the major elements that I like can discuss in the analysis. Like first point, that is patriarchy and ecological isolation. From this, like patriarchal societies function in such a way that ecology, or I can say, not become the part of this real world, but you can say like we are just keeping distance from this ecology. And secondly, like socio-ecological crisis. Then of course there is another important element that I found, like that is patriarchal oppression of human resilience. So this all source like extends from family to environment, and due to this development of modernization or alienation and profound digital or mass exploitation. Another important element that I like discuss, or I can say that I found, like gendered violence and environment. So like capitalist patriarchal society like commodifies women, nature, pollution and displacement, and of course this possibility recur across the poem. Another important things that I found, like embodied resistance, that is very much important for this. Like it's not only the repression, suppression or domination is going on, but it also like challenging all these things, like how this can be stopped, how this patriarchy, or I can say this domination can be stopped. That is also found here. Like bodies, collective and ecological memory are sites of so reclamation and alternative relation with our nature. Now the major findings and implication of this study are like findings. So those links domestic and ecological decay to expose the systematic violence. And secondly, these poems this is poem convert the victimhood into collective and embodied resistance. And thirdly, literature perform critical work in imagining ecological and gender justice. Another important thing that is important for this study, like implication. So ecofeminist perspective are different understanding of socio-environmental crisis, and from holistic response in policy, activism and scholarship. Now let's go to the conclusion. So here this study basically deploys, or I can say this social analysis poetry deploys like imagery and metaphor to reveal the entwined flexion of woman and nature under the capitalist patriarchy, or I can say capitalist structure, capitalist society, while celebrating the embodied resilience and collective reclamation. So her work, or means her poetry, calls for transformation, remaking of human nature relation. Now for the next step for the further research, so this study suggests like yes for the this is the some step that we can take for the further for this kind of poems if we use. So comparative studies as an important element, like explore those place within the transnational eco-feminist poetics. And secondly, like community engagement, that is very important, like which will connect the literature analysis with grassroots environmental and gender justice movement for the applied research. And another things is that we can be found like this performance and pedagogy. So like investigate dance, performance and classroom practice as modes of ecological recovery and feminist education. And thank you. Yeah, this is what I found, and this is what I discuss about or concept throughout my paper. So basically my paper is all about discussing how this ecological crisis is going on, and ecological crisis happen because of this patriarchal society, and how this patriarchal society are trying to control everything that I tried to show. And again, this female resilience, it is not the men who are taking, it's the men who is controlling, but at the same time it's the female who is resilient, who I can say who resist all this kind of oppression or this kind of domination, all these things that is very much prominent here. And uh, so thank you so much for this giving me this opportunity. This was such a wonderful experience with you all to this international community, and especially conference committee, those who give me this opportunity, this professor. And yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And yes, if you have any kind of suggestion or any kind of points or any kind of question, please let me know so that I can keep the response also. Thank you so much. Yeah, most welcome.